You are listening to Processing Trauma Out Loud, conversations about trauma and healing from two women who are doing the work.
Hey everyone, this is Kandace and Sher with Processing Trauma Out Loud. Sher, we're back to do another episode with our friend, and I like to say mentor as well, Laurie Proctor. And we are in the middle of a discussion about internal family systems. And if you didn't listen to last week's, go ahead and go back because Laurie explains more of the basics, or if you will, the foundation, and talks a little bit more about exiles. And so, Laurie, before you go, will you just go ahead and do another brief introduction of who you are and how people could reach out to you to see what you have to offer?
Thank you, Kandace. Well, for one, I'm so glad to be here with both of you, and especially talking about IFS because my system, my internal system, is obsessed with IFS because it works. Like, it's worked on my own healing journey. So I think that's where I want to begin. Like, this modality, it works. It's evidence-based, which I love. Like, I have parts that want to know that it's scientifically proven that there's something here, and there is evidence-based research on it. So I love that. But it really is that we are of multiple minds. We are not just of one mind. That's why you'll hear yourself. Like, if you just even listen to how you talk or how other people talk, you can't get away from it. They'll say, well, one part of me feels this way, but then this other part of me feels that way. Well, there you are. That's our internal system. And it's not just that we're of this one single mind. We have these different parts of us. We have these protective parts, these managing everyday parts, and then these parts that hold shame and burdens and lies. And so much of internal family systems is how to tend and care to all those parts of us so that they can trust our self-leadership and become integrated. And even I see my hands do it, like pulling it in, like our parts get separate and alone, and healing integrates them back into this whole creative and resourceful self.
Yeah.
And the more that these parts of us trust that self energy in us, the more they're going to come to the table and be like, more harmonious in how they cope with life, how they handle life. Right?
I like the way Dick Schwartz described it. Laurie and I went to a national conference. I think it was last September.
Mm-hmm.
And I think someone asked, I don't know why this felt good for me to know, but I think someone asked, do parts develop? Like, how do parts get there? And Laurie, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not like our parts just develop. They're just fragmented from our true self. Mm-hmm. And so it's not like you're born and then all of a sudden this new thing develops.
Right.
It's a fragmentation of that whole self that had to fragment.
Right. Well, I think even Dick Schwartz says we're born with our parts. Like, if you think of parts as personality, like, right. I have two children, and one was uber feisty and a little more demanding, a little more high maintenance as a baby. And the other one was compliant and easy. Same parents, different personality. And so we do have parts, but when there's trauma, those parts become more extreme. So instead of being in their natural state of essence and innocence and beauty, they have to take on these new roles. And so really we have parts. It's our personality. Some kids are outgoing and silly, and some are more, contemplative and quiet, and nothing's wrong with them. It's what happens to them that make these parts more fragmented and extreme and further away from self.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's yeah. And so last week we talked about the exile part that develops, that holds the pain, the original pain at the impact of, let's say, a shattering of our sense of safety and security. Yeah. And today we're going to get into more of the protector parts that develop or that show up to protect that exile from feeling the pain. And so can you maybe, you talked it a little bit last week about the different types of protector parts, but I'm curious if you want to also share a little bit about your protector parts.
Oh, very, very. I like that invitation. Like, oh, what part wants to be shared? Yeah, so protector parts, they really come in two ways. There's the manager parts of us and then the firefighter parts. So those are the protective parts in our system. And the managing parts, I would say, are like the proactive managing parts. They're like the ones that get us through. They're the ones that help us get through the day and achieve things and have relationships and do things. Those are really our managing everyday parts. And then we have firefighter parts, which are the parts that are trying to keep the fire of the pain of the exile, right? That holds the shame, that holds the burden. That fire's there, that pain is there. And when it gets tapped, when the exile kind of gets triggered or tapped, that pain comes out. And the managers and the firefighters are trying to keep the flames out, but in different ways. The managers are trying to perfect life or achieve it or, calm it in ways that are productive, where the firefighter parts will do whatever. It's almost like a reactive thing. Like, so I have a firefighter. I'll just name her. She's my food firefighter. And there has been times in the past that I will just have found myself in the pantry, like eating food, and no awareness of how I got there or what was going on. That's my firefighter. That in childhood, she found good mothering in food. She found really good soothing in a chocolate cupcake. Like it was soothing to her. So when my fire of my exiles get too strong, like this part will just go to the food. And without even my conscious awareness, like my manager part couldn't even say, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. Like we don't need that sugar, because that's what their manager parts do. So I have this manager part that is kind of like, no, we don't eat sugar. That is bad for us. We don't do that. Like, do you hear her? She's very, she doesn't have a whole lot of like gray area. She's very black and white.
She's got her shit together.
Yes.
She wants you to get it together too.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Our managing parts, they think they have it together, and they do. They have these strategies and these skills that have kept us safe and alive, that have kept us going. So we want to really honor those managing parts of us because they've helped us survive. And then our firefighter parts have helped us keep the pain at bay. I'm telling you, a chocolate cupcake does do wonders sometimes for that part, that she's like, oh, this feels good. Like it's a comfort. But of course, it's not like in self-energy. Well, is that really comfort? Or is me holding that little one that feels on fire truly the gift?
Yeah, I'll never forget. It's been several years ago. I was going through a particularly very painful time. And I was still just kind of learning a little bit about IFS. I had been doing a little bit of inner child work, but I will never forget this conversation with you. I didn't even know you that well yet, but my system trusted you. And I trusted you before I knew you, because I did a trauma and the enneagram training with you, and I hadn't met you at all. Even my daughter said something about that relationship between us before anything happened. So there was this trust, but I remember you just saying, Kandace, help heal that little girl in there. And this is your path. And so that was maybe 4 years ago, Laurie. And I want to just affirm and validate, not that you're asking for that, but it works. Like, does it work overnight? Is it a one and done? No. Yeah. But that little girl that you told me to pay attention to, she just wants to say thank you.
Oh, Oh, tell her she's so welcome. Like, thank you for saying that. That warms my heart. And it is true. I mean, it sounds, I have a part that she will wave this from the top of the mountains, that love heals. Like it's just her, like that part of me's belief that it is love that heals. And there's a question in IFS. So even for all your listeners, like this question is so key because it helps you find self-energy again so that you could be with those parts of yourself. And the question is always like when you're even talking about, like if I was to tell a friend about that experience of me in the pantry, right? Like you could have a lot of different responses. But one of curiosity that I like to ask friends, clients, anyone in my life is, thank you for sharing that story. How do you feel about that one in the pantry? How do you feel towards her? Because that shows us what part is in control. Because I have a part that's like, she's ridiculous. Like, what is she doing in the pantry? She knows better. Do you hear the condemnation? Do you hear the contempt? That's a part of me. And then I have another part that says, well, yeah, what else do we got except that cupcake? Do you hear the martyr? Like there's a martyr in me that's like, woe's me, we deserve that cupcake, right? But then there's self-energy in me that says, oh, Laurie's really hurting. And that firefighter part does what she does, is trying to get soothing. And let me go to Laurie and figure out why she's hurting. How do I feel towards myself in my hurt? What's my stance towards myself? Is it open-hearted? Is it loving? Is it curious? That's self-energy. Or is it judging and demanding or dismissing? Like that's protector parts. Those are manager parts. So there is that question in IFS that we will always ask, how do you feel towards that part of you? Because it's either going to bring in our other parts that are polarized with that part, or it's going to make room for that self-energy to come in. And the self-energy is what heals us. Like when I really learned this, I was like, oh, so we are the healer. It's not the guru down the street. It's not our therapist. It's not our story coach. It's none of those things. Those don't heal. Our parts think those heal. I had a part that thought, oh, well, when I have kids, then all will be right and I'll be healed. No, that just made it all more complicated for my traumatized system. But do you see how our parts have these beliefs and these? Yeah, so I think what might be helpful, and you guys tell me, but just naming some, because I love the enneagram because I like putting things in boxes that make sense to me. And we can put our managers in kind of not boxes because no one wants to be in a box. Our systems are so unique that you can't compare them to any other system. However, the patterns of the coping strategies can kind of be put into different boxes. Like we have the fight or flight response. So those managers that go into fight or flight, those are specific types of parts of us. Then we have the parts that go into functional freeze where they shut down. And we have parts that do that. They disassociate us. But so some of the things, so like we could have a perfectionist part that has to do everything perfectly or it's not okay or all hell breaks loose. So that could be a part. I have a perfectionist part. Do you guys have a perfectionist part?
I think I have one that works pretty hard to not have to face the fact that I'm human. Right? Like it's got like being human can bring pain. So I'm going to make sure I never make a mistake, be that hyper vigilance and on top of things. And
that's right. And even from that last story you shared in the last episode we did, like, of course you have that part that's going to make sure that we get it right so that doesn't happen to us again. So, that's great. And it could also become like the perfectionist in us can become the hypercritical part of us, the part that says, you're so stupid, you did that. How could you have done that? So it becomes almost like a inner critic, when it gets too strong, when it gets too traumatized. So I know my perfectionist part before I started doing this work and getting the healing. Oh my gosh, was she Like you talk about that fire in me, like I do have a fiery part, but that inner critic would just decimate me with you are this and you're that and you're, very harsh. And now that I've had unburdening and healing, I still have an inner critic, but now she's become my inner cheerleader. So her role has changed. So instead of her telling me all the crap I've done wrong, she's like, oh, good job. Did you see how you did that? Good job. Like she's truly become a cheerleader. Okay. Then another part we could have is like this helper part. So I have this in spades. It's like I call her my therapist part. That wants to go in and save the world, that thinks she's got maybe the secret sauce, that if I just help in this way, that person will be healed or be okay. And I love this part of me. I kind of call her my Mother Teresa part because she wants to go and help save the world and feed the hungry children and take the pain away from the traumatized ones. And she's a beautiful part of me, but when she's overdoing it, she has no boundaries. She's jumping in everyone else's drama and business without being asked or invited. And I've done this my whole life. This part of me has done this her whole life. The problem is she has needs, but she wants to go help everyone else's needs.
Yeah.
So you guys have that part at all? Kandace, I'm looking at you. I know you have that part. Sure, you do too. But Kandace, I see yours jump in with your kids, with with people that want to help at all costs.
Yeah, we had that conversation before we press record of how that's, that I'm actually, that is the main part that I am working with right now. Because that part also can, I wasn't relating so much with the perfectionist part, but I will tell you what makes sense to me, because my firefighters have been loud and visible. And so, like, I can't even think perfectionist. I have a failure part loud. Okay. Like, did you ever try to even get it half right? So like perfectionism seems way out there for me, but I will tell you how my perfectionist part shows up. And that is, I want to heal perfectly. I want to do the I did the failing, like that. I lost the chance for that, to be the good girl. But now, can I be the perfect healer? And can I heal perfectly?
Yeah.
I've never seen that till today, right now.
Wow. That makes sense, though. Does it make sense to you?
It does. Yeah. It's a striving part.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's a striving part. And we have striving parts, and then we have withdrawing parts, and then, we have aggressive parts. So it's a striving part of you that wants to heal perfectly. And what a beautiful intention that part holds. And yet it comes with some pressure then if you have to heal perfectly, because I'm not sure that
it sets me up to fail again in a different.
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Good catch on that. All right. So just to keep going, kind of the different types of managers and parts, like the third one, and we all have it, some of us have it more, is that achiever part, that part of us that goes and makes it happen, that can set a goal and goes and gets the goal, and that wants to look good doing it too. Like, I can do this. I could achieve this. So I was lucky enough, and I say lucky enough because, I have a sister that doesn't have a strong achiever part. And she kind of stays very stuck in her trauma because she doesn't have this, like, it's aggressive, right? It's a fight part that says, I'm going to achieve. I can achieve. And I have a strong achiever part. And I do have a funny little story. And it wasn't as a kid. I didn't see achievement as a kid because I sucked at school. I did okay, but I didn't want to achieve that way. Mine was all relationally. But I remember I was dating this young man. We were just out of college, and he was such, like, he was pothead. He smoked pot every day. He was just kind of like no motivation, barely got out of bed kind of guy. but he had this swanky job and he made so much money, but he was lazy. Like, and I'm like this go-getter. I'm working like 15-hour days, making barely minimum wage, And I remember I had this moment where I had an achiever part like come online, and that literally said, and I won't say his name, I'll make up a name. Well, if John Doe can do it, I can do it. Like, do you hear the achiever that compares? Like, if that guy over there can do it, I can do it. And it did. A shift happen in my life, and this achiever part really came on. And she's like, I want good things. I'm going to go get them. If he could do it, and look at him, I know I can do it. So that was my achiever part that came on and said, I'm going to work so hard and become successful so that I don't have to feel so alone and like I'm too much or not enough. So that my achiever part really came online with this John Doe boyfriend of mine. So that's the achiever part. You guys want to make any comment on your own achiever parts? Because you're both achievers, just saying. You both have achieved many things. Okay, so I'll keep going. So then we have this part of us that wants to be unique and special. So that's this part that knows the truth that we are unique and special, but it goes about it by never feeling like this part can feel like it's never going to get what it needs. So it just stays in this place of needing. And it's kind of like, I call it like this needing to be special, needing to be witnessed, needing to be heard. And we all have those parts, but this part, when it gets, extreme, it can just be in this constant negativity loop of like, woe's me, I'm the victim. And here's where it gets tricky, because oftentimes in trauma, we have been the victim. But this part stays in the victim mode to get what she needs. So she uses the martyr or the victim to keep getting needs met, but she stays in the place of victim instead of being empowered. And so I have that part too. I have the part that wants to cry victim all the time, because when we're a victim, we can get rescued. But this part of us kind of can manipulate and use it that way. And that's the thing, like we can judge our parts. But one thing that IFS teaches that I absolutely love is there's no bad parts. Yeah. No bad parts. Now, that doesn't mean our parts can't do things that can be considered bad, that we can judge as bad, but they're doing it with a positive intent. So even that part that wants to be victim and woe's me and have the pity party, there's a positive intent. It's because we do need care. Our exiles, our systems do need rescue. So that's that part. And then there's this overthinking part. And we all have this overthinking part. It's the part that takes us away from our actual experience and moves us back up into our head and says, well, I have to understand it. I have to figure it out. I have to know. So it's like this hyper overthinking that doesn't actually help us land in our body. So it like takes us up and away. And so I have that part in spades. Like that part will just take me away. Like, oh, I got to go learn more and buy like 3 more books or listen to 10 more podcasts. Like I got to know more. I got to know more before I can. Yeah. You want to tell me about your got to know more part, Kandace?
I'll just say this, because I know we need to keep moving here. I did a session with this young man in Sedona, Arizona, just a few days ago, Saturday. And we started, so it was more of a somatic session that we integrated some drums and nature and water. But anyway, so we sat down on these rocks and we talked for maybe about 7 to 10 minutes. And that was it. And I had to trust that I didn't need to be more understood. Like my thinking part was being activated a little bit. And so I even think he invited me to trust him for the rest of the journey that I was on in my time with him. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like, I don't know, that's what came up for me. That overthinking part was like, I just have to help him understand, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And the thinking part, wants to make sense of the world, right? And it wants to understand and to be understood, but it gets in the way oftentimes of us, like literally just allowing ourselves to be or to have someone with us, be with us. That's really a heart-centered thing, where the thinking, it's all up in the processing, right? So it's still a part of us. It's the part that has to figure it out or has to understand something. But yet it takes
the getting in the body when you said that, because my thinking part is either going to go to the past or the future. Right. So I'm either going to get depressed or I'm going to get anxious. But he was inviting me to get into my body and being in the present.
That's right. The present moment. We're not thinking at all. We're just with. We're with the sounds, the sensations. Yeah. And that's presence, right? And it's very hard because those thinking parts of us do take us into stories and into the past. And you're right. When we go into the past, we could have regret and sorrow. And when we go into the future, we could have fear and uncertainty. But either way, we're not in the present moment. So yeah, that's a very good point. And so then staying with the thinking part, we also have the hypervigilant part of us that is planning and organizing. Like that part is in the future also, but in the future with fear. Like, I got to do this, 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 and this. Like, it's the part of us that has the list of 15 things. Like, I would have that part every morning. She'd have to write a list of all the things she needed to get done. And if she didn't get them done, I'd feel anxiety. That's my hypervigilant part. The part that has to have a plan, that needs to know, that needs to have it all figured out. So, and that's also a thinking part, but it's really thinking with fear. Yeah. And then the next part, Kandace, we're very aware of it. And Sher, I know you're coming to welcome this part of you more. It's the FU part. It's the part that literally is pissed off. And there's been injustice. And this part needs to speak of the injustice. That's a fight part, right? I have that part. That part leads my system often. Like, I don't often go to freeze or shut down. I do at times, but my system tends to be led by this very strong, like, I'll just do it part. I'll just take control and do it. But she's kind of blustery. She can be kind of demanding. And so I have to really like, oh, of course you're there. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. And she's been a hard one for me because she's a lot of me. So that's what in parts work, I have a theory. I don't think this is Dick Schwartz's theory, but that we do have like a managing everyday part that kind of comes in 70% of the time. And then our other parts make up the other 30%. I could be wrong, but in my system, that feels correct for me. Now, in more traumatized systems, there's going to be lots more parts because, right, the bigger the traumas, the more complex our parts have had to become, or more brilliant, I actually say. But it could lead to lots more parts. And so even as I kind of give like a summary of the different parts, I want your listeners to know that there's no box that our parts fit in because we're all so unique and our traumas are unique and our stories are so particular. And that's what creates these parts of us, these coping strategies to make sure that we don't have that happen again to us. Yeah. So that's the feisty FU part. And then there's the part, and Sher, I see this part in you. It's the part that wants love and peace for everyone. Right. And it's the part that feels responsible for giving the love and peace to everyone. So it almost feels like it's such a beautiful part because it sees the agendas of all, it sees the pain of all, and it says, oh, I could help you. I could be responsible. So it's kind of like the helper part, but it's the part that wants love and peace for everyone and harmony. But that part can also lose its own knowing, like its own autonomy of what it needs because it's seeing what everyone else needs. Again, it's like an outward focused part. So those are just some of the parts that I can think of. Like, can you guys think of any I missed? Like some of these parts of us?
Did you do 7?
Oh, I didn't. Do you want to take that one, Kandace? You got a lot of that in you. You got a lot of
So I identify mostly with the hypervigilant part, but or that shows up as in, how she gets activated with injustice. But I can lean towards the 7 part, which is not wanting to deal with the pain and the sorrow. But I want to just go have fun. Girls just want to have fun, know. And so, but I also can lean towards the share part. I'll call it the share part because she's so good at it, really, in her essence, that 9 part of the Enneagram. So I know there's much more I could say about that, but that's what comes up to me. That part that it's almost using pleasure to avoid pain.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, and you're right. I did miss that part, probably because she doesn't want to be found. She's like, let me just go have fun. Leave me alone.
No exposure, no outing her.
Yeah, I don't want this pain. I don't want trauma. Let me go have a party.
I hope that our listeners are hearing what you have just done so beautifully is really clarify the various ways that our protector parts show up. Because sometimes we can't get to the exiled part right away, but if we can begin to see and recognize our protector parts, these ways that we show up, and I always say, I don't know if this is true, I always say, you will see it most clearly in the way that you show up in your interactions with other people. Like, look at your relationships. What are the places where you struggle? And how do you show up in ways at times that you feel like, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Why am I acting that way? Why? Like there's this recognition that I want to be something other than how I'm showing up because we long for love and acceptance and connection and intimacy and meaning in our relationships, but the pain of our exiled parts gets in the way, and we are scared of being hurt or being seen or being manipulated again or whatever the situation is of the fear. But when that kind of churns within us, which we often are not consciously aware of, we will see our protectors come forward, which you just gave us like a number of different ways that happens. So I want to just ask our listeners, go back and listen again. And can you identify the ways that your protectors are coming forth? Because if you can begin to notice that and tune into that, you can begin to eventually ask them questions, become curious with them. Like I say this to my parts all the time. Like I'll put my hand on my heart and I will say, oh, hello, there you are. Like, what do you need? Because I'm surprised at the way that you're coming forth here and the way that you're protecting me. Like, do I need to be protected?
Sher?
Yeah.
I think that just explains your 9 beautifully.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Because I'm like, oh dear God, there you are.
Well, it's true. I love my parts and I want them to be at peace. And so I've learned at first I was afraid of them or I didn't like them or but the more that I've gotten to know and understand them, like I love them and I value them. And we're going to talk more in our episode or part 3 in this series. We're going to talk about what is integration. What does it mean when we begin to connect with our protectors and our exiles so that we begin functioning more out of wholeness. And then we see these protector parts in their gifts where they're not burdened down by the trauma and the fear and the fight, flight, freeze responses, but they're showing up in their beautiful giftedness that help us live life in all the ways that we most want to be in our glorious selves. So, I don't want, I so much don't want to stop this episode because there is so much more to say. But Laurie, and for some of you who may have recognized, she walked us through the enneagram, which that's when Kandace is saying the 7-part or the 9-part. The enneagram dovetails with this so beautifully, and so does story work, which we're always talking about the reason why we need to know our stories. Like, that's how we identify our exiles, and that's how we understand how our protector parts came to take up their burdens. And so, but we will be back with Laurie Proctor from www.sowthat.com, SOWTHAT. I want to give that information for those who may want to contact you, Laurie. And thank you for, I was sitting here scribbling notes because there are things I'm like, oh, that's a part. I had the discovery of something I've been noticing in my life recently, and I'm like, oh, that's a part. That's a protector part. And so thank you, Laurie, for just everything that you shared in both of these episodes, and I can't wait for episode 3. So we will be right back with episode 3.
Thank you.
Love you so much.
Love you guys.